The news broke like a thunderclap across entertainment media circles in mid-February when Radar Online published their exclusive report claiming that Meghan Markle had been, according to their Netflix insider source, screaming at streaming executives demanding they fix her image. The exact quote that sent shockwaves through royal watching communities was chilling in its directness, with the source alleging Meghan warned Netflix brass to make the scandal with her father go away or they will both suffer for it. This was not a polite request from a content partner hoping for favorable coverage. This was, if the reporting holds true, an ultimatum delivered with the kind of desperation that only emerges when someone realizes their back is firmly against the wall. The timing of this alleged confrontation tells us everything we need to know about what precipitated it. Just weeks earlier, news had leaked that Meghan's father, Thomas Markle Senior, had been left stranded in a hospital in the Philippines, while his daughter was busy promoting her Christmas lifestyle special, a show literally centered around themes of warmth, family gatherings, and connection. The optics could not have been worse if someone had designed them specifically to destroy her credibility.
Meghan, she's in hot water after news leaked that she left her dad, Thomas Markle Senior, last year stranded in hospital in the Philippines, and as a result, she's now demanding Netflix to fix her image or else.
Here was a woman telling Americans how to create cozy holiday moments while her own flesh and blood lay in a foreign hospital bed, allegedly without contact from her. The hypocrisy was so thick you could spread it on the artisanal toast she featured in her show. What makes this particular demand so audacious is the power active at play. Meghan is not approaching Netflix from a position of strength. She is coming to them after 3 consecutive content failures, after burning through whatever goodwill their initial massive deal generated, after the streaming giant has already seen their Sussex investment yield diminishing returns. Yet according to this insider, she walked into those meetings demanding they deploy their powerful PR machine to control the narrative on her behalf. The sheer confidence required to make such demands after delivering flop after flop suggests either striking self-belief or a fundamental misreading of her current standing in the entertainment industry. The insider's language is particularly revealing when they describe the desperation underlying this confrontation. The source told Radar Online that Meghan knows the network has invested a lot of money and promotion into her and Harry, and she wants them to protect their investment and save her bacon. That final phrase stands out because it strips away any pretense of partnership or mutual benefit. This is not about creating great content together or building something meaningful.
Next, he's been leaning heavily on Netflix's powerful PR machine to, quote, control the narrative whilst her dad recovers, fearing the backlash to a harsh treatment of him could imperil her next big Netflix project.
According to this source, this is about Meghan wanting Netflix to bail her out of a public relations disaster of her own making. She allegedly believes that because Netflix has already spent millions on Sussex content, they are now obligated to clean up her personal messes. But can Netflix actually deliver what she supposedly wants? Can any PR machine truly make the public forget that a daughter apparently abandoned her father during a medical emergency while simultaneously lecturing them about the importance of family connection? This brings us to a question that demands examination. What exactly triggered this level of desperation? And why did the Thomas Markle situation cut deeper than the countless other scandals that have surrounded Meghan over the years? The hospital crisis involving Thomas Markle Senior did not occur in a vacuum. It landed precisely when Meghan needed positive press more than ever. During the launch window for With Love Meghan, her lifestyle, cooking, and entertaining show that was supposed to reposition her as a warm, relatable figure rather than the controversial royal defector she had become in the public imagination. The show featured Meghan in her Montecito kitchen, surrounded by celebrity friends, demonstrating recipes and craft projects while speaking earnestly about hospitality and bringing people together. The entire premise rested on presenting her as someone who values connection above all else. Then the news broke about her father, Thomas Markle, the man who raised her, who paid for her education, who supported her acting dreams before she ever met Harry, was reportedly hospitalized in the Philippines under serious circumstances. The details that emerged painted a picture of a daughter who either did not know or did not care that her own father was in medical distress. When you are actively promoting a Christmas special about gathering loved ones close, about the magic of family during the holidays, being exposed as someone who allegedly cannot be bothered to check on her ailing parent is devastating to your entire brand proposition. Previous scandals had damaged Meghan, certainly. The Oprah interview claims that were challenged. The bullying allegations from palace staff, the contradictions and factual errors that fact-checkers identified in their various public statements.
Well, you mentioned 6 hours of Netflix. You forgot to mention 90 minutes of Oprah, where she lied from the beginning to the end.
All of these had chipped away at public trust over time. But the Thomas Markle situation struck at something more fundamental because it spoke to character rather than behavior. You can explain away a misremembered detail or spin a workplace conflict. Explaining why you apparently ignored a parent in a hospital is exponentially harder because most people instinctively know how they would behave in that situation, and it would not involve silence. The Christmas timing amplified everything tenfold. December is when advertisers pay premium rates because audiences are primed to spend money. It is when streaming services see their highest engagement. It is when a lifestyle show about entertaining could theoretically find its perfect audience of people looking for holiday inspiration. Instead of riding that wave, Meghan watched her show launch while headlines screamed about her father's abandonment. Every feel-good segment about table settings and homemade gifts landed differently when viewers knew what was allegedly happening simultaneously in a Filipino hospital room.
That they were getting from Netflix. Netflix are, if they like the idea, they'll pay for it, but they haven't got a contract. So they're desperate for money. Will she write a book?
What made this scandal particularly sticky was the absence of any good explanation. When past controversies emerged, Meghan and her team typically responded with counter-narratives. They suggested ulterior motives from accusers, pointed to institutional racism, or reframed situations to cast her as the victim. But the father situation offered no such rhetorical escape routes. Either she knew he was hospitalized and did nothing, which looks callous, or she did not know because they have no relationship, which raises its own uncomfortable questions about why a daughter would be so estranged from the man who raised her. Neither option serves the image she has worked so hard to cultivate. The ripple effects extended beyond the immediate news cycle, because this scandal confirmed what critics had been saying for years. It validated every skeptic who had questioned her authenticity, every royal watcher who suspected the warm public persona masked something colder underneath. When your brand is built on emotional intelligence and relational warmth, being exposed as allegedly unable to maintain a relationship with your own father is not a bump in the road. It is a sinkhole that swallows everything you have built. So Meghan allegedly went to Netflix demanding they fix this for her. But what exactly was she asking them to do?
What do you think Netflix's response would be to that? If Megxie went up to Netflix and said, "Fix my image or else," what do you think Netflix's response would be?
According to the Radar Online Insider, Meghan has been leaning heavily on Netflix's powerful PR machine to control the narrative while her dad recovers, fearing the backlash to harsh treatment of him could imperil her next big Netflix project. This phrasing reveals the transactional nature of her alleged concerns. The worry is not about her father's well-being or repairing a broken relationship. The worry, per this source, is about how public perception might affect future business opportunities. She reportedly wants Netflix to make the scandal go away, not because reconciliation matters to her, but because bad press threatens her income stream. The specific ask, according to reporting, involves Netflix deploying its considerable media relations infrastructure on her behalf. Netflix does indeed have a formidable PR operation designed to promote their content and protect their talent. They have relationships with entertainment journalists, they have use with media outlets who want access to their stars and content, and they have sophisticated messaging capabilities that can shape coverage when they choose to engage. What Meghan allegedly wants is for all of that machinery to work on erasing or minimizing the father story, rather than simply promoting her shows. This represents a fundamental misunderstanding of what Netflix is and what they do. Netflix is not a royal household with centuries of experience managing family scandals and controlling information flow. They are an entertainment company that produces and distributes content. Their PR function exists to sell subscriptions and generate buzz for shows, not to rehabilitate the personal reputations of their contractors when family drama goes public. Asking Netflix to make the scandal with her father go away is asking them to perform a function entirely outside their core competency and business purpose. The use Meghan supposedly believes she holds comes from Netflix's existing investment in Sussex content. The streaming giant paid the couple somewhere between $100 million and $150 million for their initial content deal. They have produced documentaries, they greenlit the cooking show, they invested in promotion and marketing. From Meghan's apparent perspective, all that sunk cost creates an incentive for Netflix to protect their investment by protecting her. If her reputation craters completely, the logic goes, Netflix's Sussex content becomes worthless, so they should be motivated to help. But this use calculation ignores several important factors. Netflix has already recouped much of their initial investment through the documentary series that premiered in late 2022. The subsequent projects have performed increasingly poorly, suggesting audiences have already rendered their verdict. Most importantly, Netflix operates in an industry where cutting losses is standard practice. They cancel shows ruthlessly when performance disappoints. They exit partnerships that are not working. They are not sentimental about protecting talent who are not delivering returns. The idea that they would deploy major resources to manage Meghan's family drama assumes a level of commitment that entertainment companies rarely demonstrate toward underperforming partners. The save her bacon comment from the insider source speaks to something deeper about how Meghan allegedly views these relationships. It suggests she sees Netflix not as a creative partner, but as a resource to be extracted from, a tool to be used for purposes beyond content creation. This transactional approach might have worked when she arrived with massive massive global interest and the promise of unprecedented royal access. It works considerably less well after 3 projects have failed to capture audience interest, and the royal access has proven to be mostly complaints about the institution she left rather than insights into its workings. But even setting aside the questionable use and the mismatched expectations, there remains a more fundamental problem with what Meghan allegedly wants. Even if Netflix agreed to help, even if they deployed every PR professional and media relationship they possess, could they actually make audiences forget what happened with her father? Can any public relations campaign truly overcome a perception problem that is rooted in observable behavior rather than misunderstanding? The entertainment industry has a saying that resonates here. With Love Meghan flopped, Heart of Invictus flopped, Polo flopped. 3 projects, 3 failures, all with the same streaming partner who had every financial incentive to make them succeed. Netflix promoted these shows, gave them premium placement on their platform, and invested in marketing campaigns designed to drive viewership. None of it worked. Audiences stayed away in numbers that industry analysts described as disappointing at best and embarrassing at worst. With Love, Meghan was supposed to be the soft relaunch. After the controversy-heavy documentary and the inside baseball of Invictus, this cooking and lifestyle show would present Meghan as aspirational rather than adversarial. She would welcome viewers into her gorgeous Montecito home, share recipes, demonstrate entertaining tips, and charm audiences with her celebrity friends and warm personality. The concept was not inherently flawed. Lifestyle content performs well on streaming platforms, and celebrity-hosted shows in this genre have found large audiences. The problem was not the format, the problem was the host. When the show premiered, viewership numbers landed well below Netflix expectations. Critical reception ranged from lukewarm to openly skeptical, with reviewers noting a disconnect between the relatable everywoman persona Meghan was attempting and the obvious wealth and privilege on display. You cannot authentically teach people to entertain on a budget while standing in a kitchen that costs more than most viewers' homes. You cannot present yourself as just like us while your guest list includes Hollywood A-listers and your casual wardrobe costs thousands of dollars. The inauthenticity was palpable, and audiences responded by simply not watching. Heart of Invictus should have been a layup. The Invictus Games represent genuinely inspiring stories of wounded veterans overcoming incredible obstacles through athletic competition. Harry's involvement with the organization predates his departure from royal life and represents perhaps his most universally respected endeavor. A documentary series following competitors as they trained for and competed in the games had all the ingredients for compelling television: real emotion, physical drama, underdog stories, and a cause almost everyone supports. Yet the series failed to capture major viewership. Industry analysts pointed to several factors. The pacing was slow. The focus drifted too often from the veterans themselves to Harry and his own emotional journey, which many viewers found less compelling than the competitor stories. The series felt more interested in establishing Harry's importance to the organization than in letting the athletes' stories speak for themselves. Audiences who tuned in hoping for inspiring sports documentary found something closer to a Sussex promotional vehicle, and they tuned out Polo represented the most baffling misread of audience interest. A documentary series about the sport of polo, following elite players and the wealthy enthusiasts who support the circuit, was never going to find a mass audience. Polo exists in a rarefied atmosphere that most viewers cannot access or relate to. It is not a sport people grew up playing or watching. It does not have the cultural footprint of basketball or football or even tennis. Producing a polo documentary was the streaming equivalent of hosting a party and only inviting your friends who summer in the Hamptons. Everyone else saw the invitation and decided they had better things to do. The pattern across these 3 failures reveals something major. Netflix gave Meghan multiple chances with different approaches. Documentary content focused on her and Harry. Documentary content focused on a cause Harry cares about. Lifestyle content designed to showcase her personal brand. Each time, audiences rendered the same verdict. They were not interested in what the Sussexes were offering. The variable that remained constant across all 3 projects was Meghan herself, and the results remained constant as well. This brings us back to the fundamental question Netflix faces. They have invested heavily in a content partnership that has yielded declining returns. They have a partner who, according to insider sources, is making demands rather than delivering hits. They have seen audience data that tells them clearly what the market wants, and it is apparently not more Sussex content. At what point does protecting your investment become throwing good money after bad? Now comes word of a new project that insiders are calling the make or break moment for this partnership. According to reports, the Sussexes are developing a romantic comedy called The Wedding Date for Netflix, a glossy entertainment property designed to move them beyond royal drama and into mainstream content production. The strategy appears clear. Stop trying to sell audiences on the Sussexes as subjects and start trying to prove they can produce content that succeeds on its own merits. The insider quoted by Radar Online framed the stakes explicitly, saying that both the Sussexes and Netflix know that this is a make-or-break moment for them as partners. After 3 underperformers, there is no more benefit of the doubt remaining. The wedding date either delivers numbers that justify continued investment, or it likely represents the end of this particular content marriage. Netflix did not become the dominant streaming platform by continuing to fund losing propositions out of sentiment, but the announcement of the wedding date raises an obvious question. Whatever happened to Meet Me at the Lake? Several years ago, the Sussexes announced they were developing a film adaptation of this best-selling novel, a romantic story that seemed perfectly suited to their stated goal of producing uplifting entertainment. The announcement generated headlines and positioned them as serious content producers with literary ambitions. Then nothing happened. No casting announcements, no production start dates, no updates of any kind. The project simply vanished from discussion as if it had never been announced. This pattern of announced projects that never materialize damages credibility with industry partners. When you repeatedly trumpet upcoming ventures that fail to come together, people stop taking your announcements seriously. They assume there is a gap between what you say you are doing and what you can actually execute. The Meet Me at the Lake situation suggests the Sussexes may have difficulty moving projects from concept to production, which is not a small concern when your entire post-royal identity rests on becoming successful content creators. The romantic comedy pivot also reveals something about how the Sussexes read their current situation. They apparently understand that content directly about themselves or their causes is not connecting with audiences. Their solution is to produce something that does not require viewers to like or trust them as individuals, something that can succeed based on stars and story rather than Sussex involvement. This is an implicit acknowledgement that their personal brand has become a liability rather than an asset, that their names attached to a project may actually drive audiences away rather than attract them. Whether this strategic retreat can work depends largely on execution. Producing a successful romantic comedy requires creative instincts, industry relationships, and the ability to attract talent that can carry a film. It requires understanding what audiences want from the genre and delivering it effectively. Nothing in the Sussexes' track record suggests they possess these capabilities. They have demonstrated skill at generating controversy and headlines, but not at producing entertainment that people actually want to watch. The source describing this as a make-or-break moment understates the pressure. If the wedding date fails to perform, the Sussexes lose their most major revenue stream and their primary claim to relevance in the entertainment industry. They cannot return to royal duties. Their foundation work generates no income. Their speaking and appearance fees have reportedly declined as interest wanes. Netflix represented their golden ticket to sustained financial independence, and that ticket is looking increasingly close to expiration. But here is what all the Netflix drama and strategic pivots and new project announcements cannot address. Meghan Markle has what commentators have termed a likability, relatability, and trustability problem. These 3 qualities determine whether audiences want to spend time with a public figure, whether they will give that person their attention and their money. And across all 3 dimensions, Meghan scores poorly with major portions of the viewing public. No PR campaign, no matter how sophisticated, can overcome fundamental audience resistance to a personality they have decided they do not trust. The likability deficit shows up in countless audience research metrics and social media sentiment analyses. People who should theoretically be Meghan's core demographic, progressive women interested in lifestyle content and feminist perspectives, often express skepticism or outright hostility toward her. The women who would seem perfectly positioned to embrace a biracial American who married into British royalty and then stood up against institutional racism frequently reject the messenger, even when they might agree with elements of the message. Something about Meghan herself, beyond her politics or her choices, does not land with audiences who should be natural allies. The relatability gap is painfully obvious in her content. With Love Meghan asked viewers to connect with a woman who lives in a $16 million Montecito mansion, wears designer clothes to work in her kitchen, and counts Hollywood royalty among her casual acquaintances. The domestic fantasy she presented bore no resemblance to how actual middle-class viewers live their lives. You cannot be aspirational and relatable simultaneously when the gap between your reality and your audience's reality is a chasm rather than a step. Martha Stewart succeeded in lifestyle content by presenting herself as a perfectionist striver who earned her expertise. Meghan presents herself as effortlessly superior, and audiences can smell the performance. The trustability problem is perhaps the most damaging and the hardest to repair. It stems from documented contradictions in her public statements, from claims made in high-profile interviews that were challenged by evidence, from a pattern of presenting herself as victim when circumstances suggest more complicated dynamics. Once an audience decides someone is untruthful, every subsequent communication filters through that skepticism. Everything becomes potentially suspect. Every emotional moment reads as possibly performed. This is the hole Meghan finds herself in, and no Netflix PR machine can dig her out because the problem is not messaging. The problem is a credibility deficit earned through her own public statements. The observation that you cannot polish a turd may be crude, but it captures something core about Meghan's situation. She is not dealing with a perception problem that exists independently of reality. She is dealing with a perception problem that reflects how audiences have processed her actual public behavior over many years. The solution is not better public relations. The solution would require becoming a different kind of public figure, one who admits mistakes, one who demonstrates growth, one who gives audiences reasons to reassess their judgments. Nothing in Meghan's track record suggests this kind of strategic humility is within her repertoire. Even if she could somehow neutralize the father scandal specifically, the underlying trust deficit would remain. Even if Netflix deployed every resource they possess to reshape coverage of her, audiences have access to years of information that shape their current opinions. In the age of social media and internet archives, reputation cannot simply be rewritten by professional communicators. The past is always accessible, always ready to resurface in response to any attempt at rehabilitation. Meghan is not facing a bad news cycle. She is facing the accumulated consequences of years of public choices, and no streaming executive can make that go away. Something curious emerged from the Valentine's weekend coverage that might tell us more about the Sussexes' current situation than any insider source quote. Harry and Meghan were photographed leaving a restaurant called Funky in Beverly Hills, over an hour's drive from their Montecito home. The images obtained exclusively by People magazine showed the couple after what was presumably a romantic dinner celebrating the holiday. Perfectly normal celebrity behavior, hardly worth noting, except for one detail that royal watchers immediately flagged. Why would they drive more than an hour each way to dine in Beverly Hills when Montecito offers comparable high-end restaurants minutes from their front door? Meghan herself has previously praised Funky, calling it one of the top 5 meals of her life after visiting for her birthday in August. So the restaurant choice was not random, but the geography raises questions that her fans cannot easily answer. The Sussexes used to frequent Treshloon, an Italian restaurant in Montecito that became known as one of their regular spots. Paparazzi knew to stake out the location, and photos of the couple leaving Treshloon appeared regularly in tabloids and entertainment media. But here is the interesting detail. The last confirmed photographs of Harry and Meghan at Treshloon date to August 4, 2023. That is approaching 3 years without being photographed at what was supposedly their favorite local restaurant. This absence becomes more notable when you consider what Montecito is and what it offers. The community is one of the most exclusive and private enclaves in California, deliberately designed to provide wealthy residents with security and anonymity that Los Angeles cannot match. Celebrities choose Montecito specifically because they can live without constant paparazzi intrusion. The local social scene is sophisticated but discreet. High-end restaurants like Treshloon cater to a clientele that values privacy and would not appreciate photographers camping outside. So why would a couple who supposedly fled royal life to escape media intrusion choose to drive over an hour into the paparazzi-heavy environment of Beverly Hills rather than dine quietly at home? The theory gaining traction in royal watching circles suggests a troubling explanation. The Montecito social scene may have had enough of the Sussexes. Consider the dynamics at play. Montecito residents chose that community for privacy and discretion. They do not want photographers and reporters following their famous neighbors and, by extension, potentially capturing them as well. If the Sussexes have a habit of ensuring paparazzi know where they will be, that behavior would quickly wear out their welcome among neighbors who value anonymity. Nobody wants to dine at an exclusive restaurant only to find photographers waiting outside because another patron tipped them off for publicity purposes. The nearly 3-year gap in Treshloon photographs suggests the Sussexes may no longer be welcome in Montecito's social establishments. If they want to dine out and be photographed, which their publicity requires, they may now need to travel to communities where such behavior is expected and tolerated. Beverly Hills and Los Angeles operate under different social contracts than Montecito. Paparazzi are a normal part of the scene there, and restaurants expect and even welcome the attention that celebrity patrons bring. What would be a violation of community norms in Montecito is simply standard practice in Hollywood. This exile theory, if accurate, would represent a major social consequence for the Sussexes. They chose Montecito for its privacy, its proximity to celebrity friends, and its distance from the media circus they claim to despise. Being frozen out of local social establishments would transform their mansion from a private sanctuary into something closer to gilded isolation. They can exist in Montecito but not participate in its community life without experiencing the cold shoulder of neighbors tired of their public antics. How did photographers know exactly where and when to capture those Beverly Hills images? 2 possibilities exist, and neither reflects particularly well on the couple's stated values. Either someone from the Sussex operation contacted the paparazzi agency to ensure coverage, or a random civilian spotted them, snapped photos, and sold them afterward. The second option is possible but statistically unlikely given the professional quality of the images and the perfect timing of the shots. The first option aligns with long-standing speculation about how the Sussexes manage their media presence. Multiple commentators have noted that Backlash, a celebrity photo agency, seems to know exactly where the couple will appear with suspicious regularity. The agency explicitly advertises that they pay for celebrity tips, creating a potential revenue stream for anyone willing to share location information. Speculation persists that Meghan herself, or someone on her team, provides these tips and receives compensation when the resulting photos sell. This arrangement, if it exists, would represent the height of hypocrisy given the couple's public positions. Just weeks before the Valentine's dinner photographs emerged, Harry was in a London courtroom testifying about his lawsuit against British tabloid publishers. His emotional testimony included claims that media coverage had made his wife's life a misery, that the constant intrusion and negative coverage caused genuine suffering. He positioned himself and Meghan as victims of a predatory press that would not leave them alone. Then, mere weeks later, professional photographs emerged of the couple leaving a restaurant in exactly the kind of calculated celebrity coverage that suggests cooperation rather than intrusion. The juxtaposition is jarring. You cannot credibly claim the media makes your life miserable while simultaneously appearing to work with paparazzi agencies for publicity and potentially profit. You cannot sue newspapers for intrusive coverage while seemingly inviting photographers to capture your Valentine's dinner date. The translation of Harry's courtroom testimony, as one social media commentator noted, might be more accurately rendered as his wife's life has been made miserable by media coverage only when she does not get paid for setting up the deals. The inconsistency between stated values and apparent behavior is exactly the kind of contradiction that erodes public trust. Audiences may not understand the intricacies of Sussex finances or Netflix negotiations, but they can recognize hypocrisy when it walks itself out of a Beverly Hills restaurant and poses for photographers. This pattern of saying one thing while doing another feeds directly into the trustability problem discussed earlier. Every incident like this reinforces the perception that the Sussexes operate with a fundamental dishonesty about their relationship with media. They are not victims seeking privacy. They are participants in a media ecosystem they claim to despise, allegedly playing both sides for financial benefit while positioning themselves as persecuted innocents. The financial pressure underlying all of these maneuvers deserves direct examination because money explains much of what otherwise seems contradictory or irrational about Sussex behavior. Former Royal Press Secretary Dickie Arbiter put the situation bluntly in recent media commentary, stating that the couple needs money desperately and that they have been spending it like water going through your fingers. This assessment from someone with insider knowledge of royal finances carries weight. The spending side of the equation is not mysterious. The Montecito mansion cost approximately $16 million. Security costs for a family as high-profile and controversial as the Sussexes reportedly run into millions annually. Maintaining the lifestyle they have chosen, with private jets, designer wardrobes, staff, and the general upkeep of an estate on that scale, requires continuous large income. They are not living off savings. They are living off income streams that must remain active to support their choices. The income side has become increasingly uncertain. The massive Netflix deal that provided their initial financial cushion is basically spent. New Netflix projects must be greenlit individually, with payment contingent on actually producing content that the platform wants. After 3 flops, the use the Sussexes once held has evaporated. They cannot command the same fees or the same automatic green lights they enjoyed when the partnership began. Harry's ongoing legal battles in the United Kingdom represent a large drain on resources. His multiple lawsuits against British media organizations require top-tier legal representation that charges win or lose. These cases cost millions in attorney fees, travel expenses, and related costs. The emotional satisfaction of fighting the tabloids comes with a major price tag that must be paid regardless of outcome. The Memoir reports that have circulated recently add another dimension to the financial picture. Multiple sources suggest that publishers are offering multi-million-dollar advances for a Meghan Markle book, but only if she delivers content about the royal family that would generate large sales. In other words, publishers will pay major money for additional attacks on the institution and family she left behind. They will not pay the same amounts for lifestyle advice or inspirational musings. The commercial value lies in controversy, which creates an incentive structure pushing Meghan toward exactly the kind of content that would permanently destroy any hope of royal reconciliation. Harry reportedly opposes such a book precisely because he understands the consequences. Whatever hope he harbors for eventual rapprochement with his father and brother would evaporate the moment Meghan published additional attacks on them. A tell-all memoir would be the point of no return, the final confirmation that reconciliation was never genuinely desired. His opposition, per these reports, creates tension with a wife who may see the book advance as necessary to maintain their lifestyle. The disconnect between income needs and income opportunities creates the desperation that likely drove Meghan's alleged confrontation with Netflix executives. When money is flowing freely, you do not make threats to business partners. You do not demand they solve your personal public relations problems. You negotiate from confidence and strength. The reported behavior suggests neither confidence nor strength. It suggests a dawning recognition that the golden age of Sussex earning potential may have passed. And so we arrive at the fundamental question underlying all of this drama. Can threats actually work when you are dealing with Netflix rather than Buckingham Palace? The British royal family has centuries of experience managing difficult family members, absorbing scandals, and maintaining institutional continuity through crisis. They have sophisticated protocols for handling everything from abdications to divorces to public embarrassments. The palace knows how to wait out a storm. Netflix operates under entirely different incentives and constraints. They are a publicly traded entertainment company, answerable to shareholders who expect returns on investment. They measure success in subscriber growth and engagement metrics, not institutional longevity. When a content partnership stops performing, they move on without sentiment. Ask the many showrunners whose series were canceled midstream, the production companies whose deals were not renewed, the talent who discovered that streaming loyalty extends exactly as far as the numbers justify. What use do the Sussexes actually possess after 3 consecutive failures? The initial deal represented a bet on their ability to deliver audiences. They did not deliver. The subsequent projects represented additional chances to prove value. They did not prove it. At this point, Netflix has more reason to minimize losses than to continue investing. The sunk cost fallacy would suggest protecting the investment by giving Meghan what she wants. But successful businesses recognize sunk cost fallacy for what it is and make decisions based on expected future returns rather than past expenditures. The fundamental disconnect at the heart of this situation is that Meghan allegedly wants Netflix to repair damage she continues to create through her own behavior. She wants them to fix the father scandal perception while reportedly maintaining the estrangement that generated that perception. She wants them to make audiences like her, while she continues doing things audiences find off-putting. This is like asking a gym to make you fit while you continue eating poorly and skipping workouts. The problem is not the gym. The problem is your choices. Netflix is an entertainment company. They sell content. They can promote shows effectively and generate buzz for launches. What they cannot do is make audiences emotionally connect with a person. Those audiences have decided not to trust. That is not a failure of PR. That is a fundamental limit on what public relations can accomplish. You can inform people. You can shape the frame through which they view information. You cannot make them feel warmth towards someone they have concluded is inauthentic. So where does this leave us? The reports suggest Meghan issued an ultimatum to Netflix, demanding they fix her image or both sides would suffer. The threat implies mutual destruction, that if Netflix does not help, they will lose their Sussex investment entirely. But the calculus may have already tipped against her. Netflix might rationally conclude that cutting losses now is better than continued investment in a partnership that has yielded diminishing returns with no indication of improvement. The wedding date project will likely determine everything. If it succeeds, if audiences actually watch in numbers that justify continued partnership, the Sussexes buy themselves more runway. If it fails like its predecessors, expect the Netflix relationship to quietly dissolve as the streaming giant redirects resources toward content that actually attracts viewers. There will be no dramatic announcement, just a gradual absence of new Sussex projects until everyone understands the partnership has ended. And when that happens, when Netflix is no longer there to potentially bail her out, the Memoir offer will look increasingly attractive. Publishers waiving multi-million-dollar advances do not care about royal reconciliation. They care about selling books. And Meghan, facing financial pressure and exhausted options, may eventually conclude that burning the final bridge to the palace is worth the immediate payout. Harry's objections will matter less when the alternative is losing the lifestyle they have built. If Netflix could not make audiences like her content after 3 attempts with large investment and promotion, what makes anyone think they can make audiences like her? The content failure reflects an audience verdict on the person, not just the programming, and that verdict, rendered repeatedly over years of public observation, is not something any PR machine can overturn. Sound off in the comments with your take on whether Netflix will capitulate to these alleged demands or finally cut their losses. And if this is your first time here, subscribe. You will want to be here for what is coming because this story is far from over and the next chapter may be the most dramatic yet.